Will You Please Be Quiet, Please is a 1976 collection of 22 short stories by the American poet and author Raymond Carver. It's often regarded as one of the most distinctive prose works of the second half of the 20th century. 5 years later, Carver's What We Talk About When We Talk About Love consolidated his reputation. He died of lung cancer in 1988 at the age of 50. The two books are more or less indistinguishable in terms of style and subject matter. Both feature plain-speaking Americans, mostly from blue-collar backgrounds, in everyday settings. Often there's something odd to hand, but exactly what is conveyed more by what isn't said than by what is. Equally often, they're incredibly funny. They're important for two reasons. The first is that prose, which has often been described as minimalist, it states exactly what needs to be stated without embellishment, digression, or sentimentalism, epitomising William Strunk's 1918 advice for good writing: omit needless words. For that reason, in some creative writing courses, Carver is still held up as the #1 writer for students to imitate. Arguably, however, the reason minimalism works so well for Carver has to do with his subject matter. His characters also tend to be people of few words. Whether that laconism could work for longer fiction embracing persons of greater social and cultural diversity is an open question. Could we imagine it working for War and Peace, for example? That may explain Carver's desire to move beyond it, beginning from about 1980. The other reason these two books are important has to do with the way they were produced, because it turns out that a lot of the needless words omitting wasn't done by Carver himself, but by his editor, Gordon Lish. Lish began publishing Carver's work in 1971 in Esquire magazine, where he was fiction editor. To say his approach was hands-on is an understatement. He cut two stories in What We Talk About When We Talk About Love by almost 3/4 and some others by half. In 1976, Carver had been fully on board with that approach. In 1980, no longer. He famously wrote, "I'll tell you the truth, my very sanity is on the line." Of course, this inevitably raises questions about whether Lish should be officially part credited. We now know the extent of his revisions because we have Carver's originals, and many critics feel the stories wouldn't have achieved the same level of recognition without the editorial severity. And in fact, Lish was a genius in his own right. But what's often forgotten about Lish is that he wasn't just a great editor, he was also a great talent scout. He actively trawled the slush piles at Esquire looking for new writers, and he discovered Carver. The connection between Carver, Lish and the body of work raises questions about creativity, community, and what some people have called the romantic cult of individual genius. It would provide the basis for a very good play or film, if it hasn't already. Of course, it wouldn't be remotely interesting if the stories weren't so superb.